Can everybody see that okay?
Yep. Okay, you can move right on to the next one. So I'll move through this one pretty quick. In essence, this is the broad aerial. I wanted to show the context of the parcel as it relates to all of the adjoining lands. In essence, what we're presenting is nearly identical to what we presented to the planning board prior, with the alteration of our original design into a townhome community on the Miller parcel that ultimately terminated into a cul-de-sac up on the eastern part of the parcel. So Caitlin, if you move on to the next one, it's a little bit of a blow up. You can see it a little bit better. So if you look at this slide, I can't really show you my cursor because I'm locked out there. But if you look at this slide, right where roughly Caitlin had her cursor on that corner of the Miller, that's where the project had terminated with a cul-de-sac. And what we did in receiving some of that feedback was, obviously, we didn't have 2 points of entry or egress. And so when the Wilkin parcel became available, we really just said, okay, how do we take all the strengths of our currently proposed project and extend those strengths onto the Wilkin parcel through conservation subdivision design and the preservation of the open space metrics. So if you now look at both parcels, we extended that road over to Parish. We followed all of the natural topography so that we had no impacts as far as grading or sculpting or any type of significant grading changes that would be required. We wanted to keep the product offering into a smaller townhome, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but also in doing a layout and a design such as this, we can achieve very, very significant measures of open space. So when you look at the overall calculation, we are literally protecting every one of the natural features throughout the project. Both ponds, viewscapes, wetlands, all wooded areas. We're able to keep some continuing agricultural on the Wilkin parcel, and also meet some health safety requirements with both ingress and egress, as well as a distributed traffic flow. If you know, it's obviously nicest to have that traffic flow on a 50-50 split between 2 entry and exit points. Traffic on a project like this is very minimal because it's an empty nester product. It's all off-peak distributed traffic. We never hit the AM hour or the PM hour. So the traffic calc is really ultimately going to be nominal. But I also think, more importantly, when we design like this, we can create, instead of creating pocket open space elements throughout a community, this project creates vast, large open space blocks. If you look at the entire parcel to the west of our road network, we basically have a very unique opportunity to co-join all of the natural features with the Miller Park. So that's a strong strength for us. We've got a beautiful stream corridor which moves right up through the middle of the project, which we've completely buffered. And as I mentioned, we reduce all our impervious surface area. We can loop our water, and as I said, have a road network that could support the community quite comfortably. We have plenty of linear feet to accommodate the housing. So naturally, we got really excited about it. We were able to obviously also protect. There's a traditional cobblestone home on Parish Street, which was the original farmstead. If you know where that farmstead is, or that old cobblestone home, if you look at the buffering that we've put around that, it's massively significant. So in reality, the 40 acres, a little over 41 acres that we're picking up on the Wilkin parcel, we're using a fraction of that in its entirety. So in our normal course of events, if you kind of move to the next slide, Caitlin, here's what shows as far as the overall open space. In the normal course of events, as I mentioned, that open space is very pocketed and is not as usable. In this example, instead of us putting all of this highly usable open space into an HOA domain, we could extend that Miller Park and donate over 65 plus acres to the town of Canandaigua. That element alone, from a land value perspective, is well north of 700,000 in contribution to the town, and then we can use our resources to extend all of those trail networks from the Miller parcel into the public domain. And instead of having all of this within the private domain of the residences within this particular community. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to look at that density bonus. We said, look, we're really able to offer a tremendous public amenity. We have to run our road network anyway. So whether we were at 80 homes or whether we were at 92 homes, there was literally no calculation difference with respect to design or layout or impact to the open space. The road network would all be dedicated. So the town would be absorbing long-term, obviously, that cost. And so eliminating the tax base of an incremental 12 units when all of the facilities would be dedicated anyway didn't make any sense to us. And so now we've got an opportunity to really get some high quality park-like features into the public domain and really wrap the Miller Park throughout this entire project. If you go off to the next slide, Caitlin, I'll show you, just to give you an example. This is the project in its more traditional layout at 80 homes. And if you look at the significance between this and what we're proposing, taking that same road layout and going exactly into zoning, as right zoning right now with the two parcels combined, and you can see that the impacts are much greater, and so it's a real nice natural way to communicate to residences. We are achieving a much wider open space. This project is 40% open space versus 72%. This is 80 units versus the 92, and the 92 is achieving a much more natural feature and benefit to the town. And so I think that's a nice way to explain the differentials between the two approaches. and why the town board could easily extend that incremental density credit in exchange for great public positives. If you move on to the next slide, Caitlin, here's where we wanted to show just, kind of zooming back out. We've got the Miller Park there, which we've gotten visuals of. We've walked that site. We've received feedback with regards to its overall utilization. And it's a utilization that we're really familiar with already. If you look at Lakewood Meadows and what we've done there, there we've got over 130 plus acres of open space. We've tied all of those with incredible trail networks throughout the community. And those trail networks are a tremendous benefit to the residences. But those trail networks are exclusive to the residences. And here we're looking to, as I said, open this up to the public domain. So we would be taking that same philosophy. And if you can look at the trail network, we can connect that trail network right from where Miller Park is. We can bring that trail network along the northern part of the parcel. We can connect right there where it says SCP at the road line. We can connect, it's SCP on the north and the south end, Caitlin. We can connect right there into our sidewalks. But then we can then move back into our field trail network right between the two ponds, right up the stream corridor, around the entire wetland area, into our wooded scape, and then also reconnect to our internal sidewalks at the south end of the parcel. So now you've got public gateways to every one of the natural features, a full extension of Miller Park on 72% open space on ours, and our ability to put all of those pieces into the public domain. We in addition to that, wanted to be cognizant of all of our residential buffering. So we pushed the homes away sightline wise. And if you're familiar with the topography of this, Parish Street, as it comes in off of 5 and 20, rises up rapidly. And it's got that high hill with mature trees on the eastern side. And so I've written kind of no site visibility, because you just cannot see this site at all from any points east. We then can subordinate with a nice buffer, even though those homes aren't visible. So I tag that as residential buffering. And then if the Wilkins parcel moves from the east towards the west, we've got the opportunity to do continued ag operations, because I'm not disturbing those two farm fields where the lower fields are that butt up against our western border. And I'm completely avoiding any ridgeline discussions or ridgeline impacts, because the area high point is well off property to the west. So I'm sitting in a low between that area high point, then the parcel drops down to the Wilkin parcel, and then it sits on a lower level, and then it drops again down to 5 and 20. So there's literally no site visuals outside of the parameters of the parcel. So that kind of walks through all of the positives and the ability to extend Miller Park. And what I can also say is there's two routes that we could go. I could put all of the land into an HOA and then put complete cross easements dedicated to the town of Canandaigua. So if the town said, we don't want to maintain any of this, but we do want the public domain to utilize all of this open space through the extension of Miller Park, we could keep all of that land within a HOA that we file, but then within that HOA, we just put a full open access and easement arrangement with the town of Canandaigua. Or you could take a second alternative and dedicate all of that open space to the town of Canandaigua. We're open to either approach, whichever you think is a better approach. We could tackle that either way. And then if you move on to the last one, Caitlin, just wanted to show, these are, Lakewood Meadows trail networks that we have built and constructed. As I said, extremely active and utilized. We mow and maintain those trails, and the rest of it turns into great wildflower meadows. And as I mentioned, they are utilized on literally a daily basis. So here's just some interesting summer views of our trail network. Here are winter views of our trail network. They're used for cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. The top right is an example of our woodland trail networks. We do monumentations so that people understand the trail designations with trail maps. And then the lower pictures demonstrate whenever we have natural features, we like to highlight those natural features by putting in destination points. For example, on the Wilkin parcel, there's those ponds, 2 ponds that we'll be constructing, but there's also natural storm ponds that have been in existence for a number of years from the original farming. This bottom left picture is an example of one that was in Lakewood that was not constructed, but it was a natural wetland vegetation ponding area that we put decking and chairs on as well. And so what we find with residents is they love that natural beauty. They like internal sidewalks are nice, but the moment you get off of a hardscape environment into the natural environment like this, you really feel like you're stepping away from a residential area and much more into the natural environment, which is why we design all of our trail networks like this. And if you look at the way the Miller Park is designed today, it's designed literally exactly like this. So we really see it as a natural extension. The drawback of the Miller parcel right now is it's missing a lot of really key natural features. It doesn't have the ponding. It doesn't have the wooded areas that you can draw into. And so that's some of the neat elements that we could bring in and introduce to the general public with the Wilkin parcel and the Miller parcel combined to have a much more diverse natural environment. And then Caitlin, if you go to the last picture, what I wanted to show here was because of our road network here and the buildings, we obviously wanted to do a townhome. We have a tremendous empty nester demand, and that continues, and it continues to grow. But we didn't want to do the large 4-unit buildings. We wanted the homes to be that low profile of the max 25-foot height. We wanted to move it into an arts and crafts style home and have predominantly 2-unit buildings with some 3-unit buildings just to meet the demand. So the homes were much smaller in profile in a right to left configuration. And the other nice advantage of our streetscape is it gives us the ability to side load one or both of the units to get a stronger front elevation appeal. So if you look at this unit to the top, that's actually a 2-unit townhome with the left unit side loaded and the right unit front loaded. But it comes across as much more rural in character, much more arts and craft, much more natural in its streetscape to the area, which we thought would be more in keeping with this parcel. So that's what we have proposed as far as the offering. We've taken a lot of our lessons learned from our current groupings and tried to pull in an evolution of all of the strengths. And so now we're looking at really just a 2-step process. We think the public will really like this because they were already introduced to what we had proposed before on the Miller parcel. We're not deviating from that. And the residences around the Wilkin parcel, as far as the overall impact and development of that area, it is literally nominal. So outside of the 2-step process of saying, requesting that lift from 80 units to 92, we're hoping for a really good planning board process. We had nice feedback at our planning board workshop and are eager to kind of get the process started. We just need your guidance because logistically, I think we need to understand what step needed to be taken to move from 80 to 92, and how does the town board envision us dedicating that open space, and what mechanism you would like to use. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Hey, Jeff, did you say you already had a conceptual design for an environmentally friendly modification of the Miller Park area?
Correct. Originally, we have a prelim design on that parcel that we had approved a number of years ago, which was more, as I mentioned, similar to that 80 home configuration. We then, you know, and I said that was nearly 8 years ago as a prelim design. So that is an approved project. We then represented the project a little over a year ago and went through a public process that showed the townhome configuration as I just presented to you, without extending it that last leg onto the Wilkin parcel. And so we've already received all of the public feedback. We got positive feedback through that as far as the buffering to the adjoiners, and really felt like, okay, our next step is just completing that process and executing on this plan. And then the only commentary we had received also was, you know, we only had a single entry point. And so the Wilkin parcel has now solved that. And so we don't really anticipate significant public discord on it, because the public has already seen the bulk of this presentation as is. And as a matter of fact, I'm hoping the public looks at what we're doing on the Wilkin parcel and saying, wow, out of the 41 acres there, they're developing 8 on that entire parcel as a positive.
Okay. I guess one other question I had is, you mentioned the 2 options. Is there any possibility of kind of splitting those options and like that parcel, I guess it's the Wilkins parcel, have that basically come onto the town, whereas the area you're designating as the, you know, the residential buffer stays with the HOA? Is that too complicated?
You're saying, as far as saying, okay, the town would like to take this portion in dedication, but not this portion. Absolutely. The town could decide we are interested in everything on the western side of the road network. We're going to take all of that Wilkins parcel, all of the Miller parcel to the west as an extension of the Miller land. And then we would HOA the balance. But I'd still want to, even in that HOA of the balance, want to offer the town dedicated access through easements of that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, you know, that you'd still have the public dedication access, all of it, but, you know, basically split the relationship a little bit.
There's no question, 100% at your discretion. You could do all of that. Like you could say the open space that we're using as residential buffer on the far eastern part of the parcel, you can see where that buffer area is more narrow in scope. The town might say, we don't need any of that. We're gonna just let you HOA control that area, completely up to you.
If one of the iterations of this was just the cross easement, Jeff, in the open space remains with the HOA, who would be responsible for maintenance of those trails and the Miller Wilkins development here? I presume it would be the HOA.
Correct. So the town, if the town said we want to have basically all of the trail networks with cross easements for public domain, but the HOA is going to basically keep title, but with those easements on them. The HOA would take over all of the maintenance, and we would be putting that in our HOA docs just like we do at Lakewood Meadows. It would basically be saying, take Lakewood Meadows, but then open it up to the general public right from the beginning. But Lakewood Meadows is taking care of all the maintenance. With 92 units, that's also something that's very helpful, because then I have 92 units versus 80 units to defer and defray that overall maintenance cost. And so we have no issues. 92 units would be plenty enough for us to maintain all of the open space on both parcels with no issue.
Thank you.
And one of the things I wanted to mention, well, while we're talking about trails, you know, we've had a number of these projects now, housing developments, associated trails. I think we just need to be clear from the very beginning with everybody involved if the trails are going to be open to the public, and that's got to be documented so that future homeowners realize that it is open to the public if we do go down that road. But one of the things that was not mentioned here is the wetland in the tributary there that comes from the wetland is actually a feeder to Sucker Brook. And I've had a conversation with Kevin Mulvaney. This was actually one of the feeders into Sucker Brook that we had originally identified for water quality improvement projects. So there is some interest on the part of the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. The town has actually done the construction work on those projects in the past. We have one project where we actually own the land where the water quality improvement project is, and we have one where we have easements. So either option would be on the table, but there is actually some grant money associated with maybe making some modifications to that wetland and that tributary there for Sucker Brook as a water quality improvement project that I think would also benefit your future development there if this moves forward.
That's great. Yeah, that's excellent. We have a wide buffer to that. We're literally leaving that entire area undisturbed. So it's a tremendous natural feature for the project.
Hey, Jeff, would you kind of envision whatever we do, we kind of set up some kind of joint team to kind of, I think we're looking at trying to minimize, you know, impact on the environment, doing kind of a joint design of what we would come up with.
As far as the trail networks, are you saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what I've put down as far as that initial take of envisioning is is basically a concept. So from the overall open space parameters, we literally could be working with your town's park and rec with public input as to where those trails are best located and what feature positions we want to add. I'm excited about that. We have great trail experience with Lakewood, so we can bring in some best practices from there and open that trail network layout to the public and to the town parks and rec.
Thank you.
Hey Jeff, Jared Simpson, I've got a few questions for you. I've got to bug out of here in about 10 minutes. So how have you communicated? You mentioned public input. Talking to the residents nearby, what input have you gotten from them, or how have you reached out to them about the impact that this is going to have?
Sure, Jared. So the prior, we haven't gone to next step as far as the Wilkin parcel adjoiners. So we basically anticipate doing that reach out now. All of the prior public feedback that we've received is because we had already introduced the Miller parcel. So we were in a number of public hearings and meeting with those residences individually, like the bed and breakfast residents we've met with prior, all of the adjoiners to the immediate west of the Miller parcel that is looking through that. We've talked to all of them with regards to the buffering. And so now I would be extending that outreach to the gentleman that's in the cobblestone home. I don't have many adjoiners on the Wilkin, so it's really just the gentleman that's on the cobblestone home. I would hope that they are very supportive because there's a huge open space buffer. And then the individual that's directly across from us on Parish. So we would be doing all of that in the next couple of weeks. We just wanted to get some internal feedback first.
Okay, thank you for that. Out of my curiosity, over at St. James for Lakewood, what percentage of those townhomes are still vacant?
Oh, good question. Very few. Yeah, we're on our final section, which is section 9D. We, just to give you an example, we opened that project up, and we're nearly 60% sold out, and we just opened it. So we're really going to be completing the Lakewood community within the next 12 months.
Okay.
I would say that's going to wrap up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the element of this offering, when you're offering a townhome with these natural features, to be honest, it's extremely rare. Most townhome communities, they pack them in like sardines. They're grid type layouts. There's no natural features, and we just are never supportive of that. So the empty nesters are very active. They are tremendously supportive of the community. They work in multiple groups. You know, I have large trail committees at Lakewood, and they also pay the full tax complement into the township with no impact on school districts and barely any impact on traffic because they are off-peak distributed traffic profile. The homes are literally 100% empty nester, even though I'm not restricting them at 55 plus. And it is always one or two. It's either a single individual or it's a couple. And we've been doing that for a number of years, and I know the profile extremely well.
Is that part of why you switched? Because I wonder, and I'm this is anecdotal, but it seems like we don't have a lot of inventory of the single family homes, like single family standalone, not the townhomes. what caused the change from, because I know initially it was single family standalone, the change to the townhomes?
That's a great question. The basically in essence, the number of colonial homes that have been constructed throughout not just Canandaigua but the greater Rochester area is just massive. We've just built so many colonial homes in droves, and so what happens is that first port of call of the colonial market goes right into that existing marketplace. And the moment that you introduce a new construction colonial home in Canandaigua, it runs right into the buzzsaw of the existing marketplace due to the delta of new construction costs versus the existing marketplace. And so the bulk of the market for colonial homes is really in that 220 to max 300K level. We're saturated in that marketplace, and there's no way for me to construct that home sub 350. And so what you end up doing is you introduce a 2,000 square foot colonial home at a very high price point when there's tremendous existing inventory that can be updated, and that family buyer takes that all day long. Whereas we're playing a massive catch up because of the zoning that was in place. The empty nesters, we've got nearly 80 million baby boomers, and I could probably build this inventory for another decade without running out of demand, because that demand is actually accelerating on us with regards to them needing to move out of that colonial homestead. So I think what you're going to see is more and more of that existing home inventory in the colonial needs to open up, because the empty nesters have no alternatives. So they're staying in that colonial a lot longer. They're not providing that inventory to the younger population. And every time we offset that with providing a townhome for that empty nester, we free up that inventory nicely for the younger population. The other dynamic is, as soon as I take this parcel and I design it for a colonial home network, I immediately chew up all of the parcel. I take out a lot of the open space. I impact the natural features. I also impact viewscapes, which I don't want to do. I want to keep that rural character on this land. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yep. And what's the price point on these? Are you at do you have that figured out yet?
Yeah, no, we're going to continue on with the same price point that we have at Lakewood. We'll basically be in the 300s and probably top out at about 400.
Okay.
But we find that the empty nesters, they are on fixed income. They really do not want to be impacted beyond that 400K level.
Then the last thing, I appreciate your answers, and I just encourage you to reach out again to the neighbors, because I think might have been some turnover there and people that would like just some more information about what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. We will now start right after this meeting. We'll basically be knocking on doors. So I enjoy that process. This is a project I'm really proud of. I think once people see the project and move into the known instead of unknown, that anxiety will come down for any resident that's got a concern.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'd just like to make a couple of comments, and that first one is that I can remember when you guys acquired that Miller property back in the 2005-06 area. Originally, I think the concept was all single family homes at that point in time. And, you know, the yield on just that 54 acres, whatever it is, was going to put 50 houses in there. It would have been a sea of roofs, you know, and the whole field covered. The old type of design, you know, it was kind of pre-conservation subdivision that was just creeping in. So my experience with that property goes back to that era when you and Scott first acquired that property. I think this is a much better use of that property and this design that you presented today versus what you had just a short time ago with everything crammed into the Miller property. This is much better in my opinion. So yeah.
And I'm glad you remember that, and there is no question about it. And I know that well. You know, and again, it was that colonial home, and it wasn't even a large colonial home, and it still had a very significant impact on the Miller piece, and it was 55 units in total, and there's no question this is. It's basically taking every best practice that we've had and rolling that concept into this parcel.
So Jeff, what are you looking at from the town, and what kind of time frames are you talking about?
That's an excellent question. So we are ready to go. We've moved forward with the Wilkins, and we're ready to complete our engineering and submit for prelim approval. And the only question is just understanding the dynamics of that density shift from 80 to 92. But we would love to run that process in tandem. We'd love to get your okay to submit our prelim overall for the project and begin the planning board so that all technical issues can get ironed out while the town board completes its process on whatever authorization is required for the density shift. So yeah, for us, time is of the essence. We'd love to get going.
Here you go. Terry,
Al, was for this group, the Public Works Planning Committee, to review this with Jeff, have the ability to ask questions, get the answers, and then make a recommendation to the town board whether this group feels that you should move ahead with it. So Doug wants to say something else.
Yeah, Terry, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to suggest that maybe the Planning Public Works Committee, you know, I think Jared may have had to jump off, but you do have a couple of town board members. Maybe the Planning Public Works Committee, while it wouldn't be anything official in terms of a binding vote of the town board, obviously, or anything, but maybe there could be some sort of recommendation that give Jeff some direction now to go ahead and submit an application. I think one of the questions that came up here today is option 1 with the town owning or holding easements versus option 2 of the town owning land. Maybe you want to give Jeff some general direction on that. I can tell you from a budgetary perspective, I'm not crazy about the town owning and then having responsibility of the trails and those sorts of things. I think the easement thing, I think from a budgetary perspective might make a little bit more sense for us, but I do think that there's an option to do something jointly with the water quality and maybe some options there. But and then in terms of submitting the application, I think probably Jeff needs that direction so he can go ahead and submit application to us so that we can get that through the process. So
that'd be great.
Well, we have all the members of the committee here except the guy who would actually be maintaining that property has to step out of the room for a minute. So when he comes back in, perhaps we can finish the discussion. But Al and Chuck are people that are on the committee, Jim and myself. We're really the 4 members of the committee. So once we find Jim, we can. And I agree with what you said, Doug, that I don't, speaking for myself as a member of the town board, I don't think that we want to incur any more expense than we absolutely have to. And the cross easement possibility that Jeff, went through, and letting the HOA maintain all the open space and the trails, but with that cross easement in place, and perhaps allowing our park and rec or people that we have interested in trail development work with Jeff and his people to come up with, you know, designs that are acceptable to everybody would be the way to go. That's my opinion on it. So, Alan, Chuck, what do you think?
I think the overall concept sounds excellent. I like the idea of working with them to decide what kind of, minimalized features we would add to best use the property. I agree that, it's going to be difficult, for the town to take on a lot of additional expenses. So I kind of like some kind of hybrid arrangement like we talked out as a possibility. I think it is something we want to just take a little time to take a look at. I hate to kind of put our stamp on something today, but I think we need to move quickly. And I'm overall, like I say, I think overall it's an excellent idea, but I think we need to take just a little time to think about it.
Chuck, you're up.
Yeah, well, wearing my planning and public works committee hat and taking off my planning board hat, I agree with the concept. I think it's a good concept. Certainly the preservation of the open space is a great asset to the town and to the neighbors and the community. Again, I think this committee, the purpose of this meeting is to provide some sort of guidance, I guess, to the town board as to whether they should allow for the increase in density. I assume this is the first time I've become involved where increase in density request has been made. So I wasn't sure which came first, the chicken or the egg. Is the density request have to be made and confirmed before the site plan and preliminary subdivision is submitted, or is it run concurrently, similar to a ZBA request, with any action by the planning board being conditional upon the town board granting the increase in density? I guess that's my biggest question as far as the procedure.
So
I would answer it, but it looks like Doug wants to jump right through the screen there. So
no. I was leading up to this so I could hear Chuck's comment. And so that's one of the challenges, Chuck, is I don't think the town code clearly identifies, right? So this is a new process for all of us. But I'm going to make an assumption here, Jeff, that if the town board doesn't grant the density, that your submission would probably look quite a bit different than what it does.
In actual fact, Doug, we probably move forward with the exact same submission, or very similar. I do need those two entry and exit points, and I think actually that's one of the things that I want to highlight is in reality, we just couldn't see a scenario where it doesn't make sense to not do this, because my road network is going to be there. The town is going to pick up that expense of a dedicated road network going between the two, Parish and Route 21. And so what would end up happening would be we would just be cutting density for density's sake. And to me, when I look at this, I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. I can offset those expenses, especially if you decide we want those cross easements and we'll have that HOA perform all of the maintenance. That would be greatly assisting that HOA with regards to the incremental contributors to that overall maintenance plan. So I think what I highlight when I show what 80 units is, I really, I show that as a project that is, this is where the zoning allows us to move forward, but I want to make my best foot forward right now. I mean, that's just where our thought process is.
So Chuck, if that's the case, if it's going to be somewhat the same, then I don't see any reason why they couldn't run concurrently. If the planning board happens to grant approval first, I would just encourage you to make it conditioned on the town board approving the increase in density if it's generally going to be the same plan. But meanwhile, the town board could be undertaking it simultaneously.
Yeah, it would certainly save time on everybody's part. The preliminary subdivision could be running its course, and then the procedures for the increase in density could be established in terms of the hearings and a decision ultimately made. So hopefully they'd all meet at the same crossing.
That would be excellent for us, planning wise.
When would we be looking at this at the town board level? I mean, it's too late now to put this on our meeting on Monday, obviously, so in March.
I would have to guess, Terry, that you're probably going to want to hold a public hearing before the town board makes a final decision on granting the increase in density. I don't know that that's spelled out specifically in town code. I want to just reference that again. If we have another special meeting between now and the March meeting, there's a number of other issues that we're also discussing. We could always set a public hearing, or perhaps we set a public hearing for the April meeting. But if it's going to be running concurrently anyway, I doubt that that's going to hold, because you're probably going to need a little bit of time to work through the planning board process. That's probably not going to hold you up if we do it at the April meeting.
I guess the other aspect of this, since Jeff seems very flexible on how we set up this business between the town and the HOA, since he's very flexible, it sounds one way or another, we're going to come to an agreement. So that should not hold up the initial process either.
One thing on the linkage between the two roads is actually the water master plan showed a linkage going up 5 and 20, which we wouldn't have to do if we had the road layout the way it has it, because that connects prices another connection running to that the personal leg that runs up that side. So the only thing is, I just don't know if that was an 8 or a 12 that was proposed in the master plan.
You mean ranking?
No, 8 or 12 inch pipe.
Oh, okay.
So because that's a 12 on parish.
Oh, that'd be good too. That's something that can be taken into consideration, Jeff. So
You're talking about the water main?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would be looping the nice thing about this is we'd be able to effectively loop that water main perfectly.
okay. I guess what we will do is we will recommend that this moves forward to the town board. Doesn't sound like there's any objection to doing that. Recognizing that there's going to be a lot of work in parallel. Well, not a lot of work for this group, but town board and planning board with Chuck. So we never did get Jim back. I don't know where he is. So, but I doubt that Jim is going to say, "Yeah, I'm looking for more work and more expense." So
Yeah, no,
I'll speak for him. So
Can I hop in with a question? And you might have gone past this, but you kind of came back to it. Hi, Jeff. Kathy Manikatz.
hey, Kathy.
How are you?
Good.
I have a question for you about the trail. So obviously I'm with the others when we're talking about we don't want to take over and maintain and pay for the maintenance. If the HOA were to retain maintenance, at some point when Morel's done building, you're off-site and the HOA takes over completely maintaining, correct?
Yeah, actually the HOA begins that maintenance right from inception, Kathy, because because the HOAs are full CPS filings with the state attorney general. We have to put full budgetary disclosures in there right from day one, reserves right from day one, and begin the maintenance process on not just the trails, but the entire community at large.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear because you were saying when you said we mow the trails, I think you meant the HOA, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so, as you know, I live in Lakewood Meadows, so I'm just saying that so that everyone's clear that. So at some point from early on, or even when you're off site, I'm just concerned whether the HOA could decide that they don't want the public on there anymore. So I just want to make sure that when it's written, obviously that it would be in perpetuity, and anything in perpetuity can run into some issues. So that's my concern. I think that's the better option, but I want to make sure that the deeds are clear, that this is not something that the HOA could say. We've run into that, and I know in Lakewood Meadows, even though there's no real enforcement of it, you know, if you're visiting, you can walk through the trails. No one's gonna stop you, right? But I know people do kind of like the private nature of it. So that's my concern, is to protect them. If we're gonna say the town has access to it, that we protect it as best can in the deed itself.
Yeah, it would be, and you bring up a great point, Kathy, because I work with this issue throughout multiple towns. And so, yes, it's both in the HOA documents. It's also would be put in our contracts with customers from a disclosure perspective. And to be honest, I mean, I worked extensively with the town of Victor on their Auburn Trail and Lehigh Trail extensions with full multi-use trail functions and access to the public domain, worked through a lot of those public meetings. And what we found, which we expected, was afterwards, it is turned out to be one of the best amenities imaginable. So I think if you start off on the right foot and understand that the public has that access right from the beginning, the residences that would be coming into this community would see it as a benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Also difficult, Kathy, because the Miller Park is right there, we're really extending Miller Park in this concept, which is a great benefit.
Right, and I think that sort of sets it apart from Lakewood Meadows, where there's no real place to park. So even if, and we have people coming from Laura Lane and Whitefulls Road, and that's, you know, that's a nice part. And as far as I'm concerned, that's nice, is having people from other communities walk through. But there's no real parking here, so I think you would have that advantage because you have the Miller Park situation. So.
Correct.
Hey, Terry, I'd be willing to say that I think, you know, our committee would be willing to recommend to the board that we concur with the increased density and that we concur with the 2 entry points, but we need to sort out what the relationship is going to be with the town versus the HOA, and the, you know, the kind of the design process for the open space.
Okay,
Mhm.
Chuck, you cool with that?
I am.
Okay. Well, then that is what we will do.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or comments or?
Quickly, if I may, since we have everybody on this call, Jeff, currently you're scheduled to go before the planning board next Tuesday night with a sketch plan. I think the intent was to, I guess, look over the constrained lands, make sure they were all accounted for and documented, to confirm the base density that you've come up with of 80 lots. I think we are also going to start to get into the conservation analysis. And I know there were also some board members that had some issues with previous plans that you've shown to the board. So I guess those were going to sort of be flushed out. So I guess I'm asking, I know the residents were not notified of that meeting. We can certainly meet and continue it after due notification to the residents at a later date, or how would the town board and Jeff like to proceed as far as our meeting next Tuesday?
Yeah, if from my perspective, I look at that and say, okay, I could do some community reach out right now of immediate residences. I could use that as a working session for feedback if you wanted to help get that process started. And then again, go right into our application, formal application afterwards. To me, you know, more communication is better than less from a public perspective. So I could do that, or I could basically wait until the recommendation comes from here and move the meeting out when you submit a broader public notice. Either one, I'm happy with your direction.
Well, when we have our meeting on Monday evening, in our agenda, the various committees, subcommittees of the town board are given an opportunity to make any presentation that they need to on any recent, meetings or whatever. So at our meeting on Monday, I will say that this group has agreed that the town board should consider, this increase in density, everything we've just talked about. We'll make that recommendation to the town board that night. Now, that's not going to, that will be it. I mean, there isn't going to be any other action taken that Monday evening. But that would set the stage for us at our March meeting to schedule a public hearing for April and then make some recommendations. So that's the way I would see it unfolding.
Okay.
Doug, I know you had some concerns about the sketch being reviewed on Tuesday night. Do you have feelings one way or the other after this meeting?
No, it was more about the communication, because I had heard also from some residents that they were not notified and that they had some concerns about that. The ECB met last night. We didn't really review it to provide comment. We just did a general overview of it, knowing that it's going to come back to them once it starts the official process and everything. Because this is just a sketch, I believe. It's all been submitted right now, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. So there'll be additional points in time where everybody can weigh in and everything, and additional public hearings and everything. So I don't think it's an issue with you discussing it. My concern really was exactly the question you asked earlier, Chuck, which comes first, the density issue? Or my concern was if they didn't get the density, if the plan was going to look substantially different. But if you're saying it's generally going to be the same, I think it can run concurrently.
All right, not to prolong the discussion on this issue, Jeff, why don't you figure on still seeing us on Tuesday evening?
Yeah, that'd be great. I think it'd be great to show to a wider audience, and any of the public that it is engaged at this moment. I can begin my reach out to them personally then.
Okay, very good. Sorry to prolong it.
That sounds good.
As far as our committee is concerned, the one thing we'll still owe Jeff is, or the town board, is some kind of recommendation on this relationship with the town and the HOA and the design process.
Well, that'll come out, I think, when we have schedule a public hearing and move forward with that also. Okay, anything else on this one?
This was excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
And,
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your upcoming weekend. That was great. That was a great discussion, and as I said, we're really excited about it. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody over the next year.
Thanks for the presentation, Jeff.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, Caitlin, what's next? You got the agenda. I think it has to do with the sanitary sewer discussion on County Road 28. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words, Greg, about the need to expand the potential district.
Yeah, so when this first kind of was discussed, we were potentially looking at an EPG grant. Some of the things that we wanted to do was also update some numbers. So when I had Rich update the numbers, one of the things that we also did in conjunction with that, with talking with Jim, was that that triangle for Emerson and County Road 28 area, to include those to show the difference in what those EDU costs might be, because there's a pump station as part of this extension. So the more units you can have, the more affordable the district can be. It's not that the district is necessarily tremendously affordable, but it increases the affordability quite a bit. I think the smaller district I don't have that number right in front of me, but the smaller district it was in the mid twos. And then once you added in, the other units, because it was like another 50 or so units we could add, it dropped it down to, I think, below 2,000.
Around 1,800 versus
Yeah,
2,300,
yeah,
about $500 difference.
it's a pretty substantial difference. I think in the, in the master plan, it kind of had a very small district, included. I couldn't remember off the top of my head exactly why we truncated, but I think it was some potential farmland or Paddleford Brook or something was kind of in that adjacent area, I guess, so to speak. So that might have been part of the reason why it was truncated. But I wanted to at least present both because when we're talking to the residents as it relates to going down, creating a sewer district, if you can't present it affordably, then out of the gate, it's almost not really worth going down the road, I guess, at that point in time.
Well, that presents a question of how we move forward with this plan. This was number 3 in the sewer master plan. Cheshire, Grandview Park, they were number 1 and 2. This was number 3. In order to really effectively move forward, there are a couple of obstacles, not obstacles, but a couple of questions here. One is adding in more. Is that a wise thing to do? There is farmland just north of, on the north side of Emerson Road, but there's also farmland behind the houses on County Road 28 that is actively farmed. So, I mean, you have a situation where the sewer line could potentially run down County Road 28. You've got farmland adjacent to it. Do we go and add in these others? We had adopted, the town board had adopted the sewer master plan in 2016. You would have to make some addendum, or town board would have to take some action to include more properties in this potential district. One of the other issues is where this line would connect. Down by Farnsworth's, collision center there.
Yeah, it's part
That line, there's an issue with that line, and that would involve getting the county to do something, which county sometimes is immovable.
or they push it back to the district, which would be an added district cost that we don't have, accounted for at this point in time because we haven't made the application to the county.
So what's the best path forward? Is it perhaps to talk to the county first and see what they would be willing to do?
In part, I think, also whether or not the town would be willing to look at a larger area or not. I mean, like I said, I think if you're not willing to look at a larger area, then, the cost might just be to the point where people are not really going to be interested in it. We've tried other places where we're over $2,000 a year for sewer.
Yeah.
I think the resounding answer from the residents is like, no, thank you.
It's a big no. So I guess really what we need to do is to have some discussion with the town board about what the feeling would be to add in or amend, I should say, the sewer master plan. See what the willingness is there. If there's a willingness to entertain that, then we can move forward that way, and also with the county.
I think what Greg's proposing, it's a good idea to maybe, a good strategy to try to make it more feasible that whole plan will go through. So it seems like it'd be a good approach to take and see if, it's a more viable project if we go in that direction.
I'm sorry, Craig, you were cutting in and out, but the additional cost would help offset some of the overall costs of the residents?
Yeah, the project includes a pump station, Chuck. So, if you're distributing the cost of a pump station over 50 units versus 100 units, there's a significant annual savings for the cost of sewer.
So the overall cost to all the residents that would be affected would be lower with the additional area.
Yeah, we just be spreading the load out.
Yep. Okay. Just want to make sure, which is certainly a reason to consider it.
Okay. I don't know if there's really much more we can do with that topic today. I'll bring it up to the town board that we need to have that discussion. I don't know that will occur on Monday, but perhaps for the meeting in April, we could get not absolute numbers, but get that document.
I can have both those sheets that we worked out for the cost for the smaller district, cost for the larger district. We could, again, so you guys can see exactly how that was worked out, but then obviously we want to, at some point again, bring in the discussion with the county, because I'm not really sure what that, how much that cost would be, because that cost would still be there with a smaller district or a larger district. I don't know what the county's going to face.
Was that area ever discussed before, and was it left out of the original sewer master plan as far as a growth area because either soil conditions or the septic system seemed to be working, or there was fear of extension of the sewer would create greater development, or was there it just wasn't looked at?
I think it was no, I do recall it being looked at, but that area was truncated because I can't remember if it was Paddleford or if it was ag properties, and that if there was a PDR that was being sought in that area or something. Doug might know.
That would be the analysis that would have to be conducted to justify the extension. That's all.
Well, Gary, are you still on?
Being one of the individuals who served on the sewer committee, the reason it was not extended further is at that time was because of the keeping it away from the farmland. Are there any drawings now of where you're projecting to extend it from what the sewer master plan stated?
I don't have anything with us, but it's just the triangle, Gary, that's, it's the Emerson County Road 28 triangle that's up there.
Do you want me to bring up a map?
Sure.
Yeah, if you could, Caitlin.
You got it, sure.
We could have for the town board, perhaps for the meeting in April, we could, or in March, we could make that, include that just to show the.
Hey, Greg, you're coming through pretty garbled. I don't know if you could move closer to the mic.
Yes, you're right, Al. Yes.
Sorry. I think I'm talking to Terry as I'm talking to the microphone.
He doesn't want to get any community spread from Terry.
One that's coughing here. He finally left the room, which is good, probably.
It's that triangle right there, Emerson, Rizzer, and 28.
Ah.
Well, the other question also is, would it be extended to the east from County Road 28? All those properties along there.
I think that, that's something to consider. It's just that when you have the loading is only on one side of the road in that particular condition, so it becomes less of a benefit to add those individuals because it costs the infrastructure to service. But I understand what you're saying. That's, I think, where you get into the issue where you might be opening up for potential development of that particular ag land that's to the north.
So what you will have for us will be just adding in those properties along Emerson on the north side and south side.
It's that triangle, Emerson, 28, and Rizzer, that whole triangle through there. There's like another 50 units right there versus ending before the split.
And the question I wanted to ask is, why not look at going, instead of going east on Emerson, go west on Emerson, going back towards 332. You could pick up a lot more units that way and then tie into the sewer line that crosses behind the, where the storage units are going next to the driving range. I can't think of the name of it, but.
I'm guessing I think there's some grade issues because I think it pitches one way versus the other. You might be able to head west a little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to get all the way down.
Well, if you remember, Greg, one of your plans was to go up to Emerson, go east on Emerson, and go down Sand Hill to North Road. which didn't seem, feasible at the time because there's not any homes there other than a couple halfway. It's about a mile stretch for a couple of homes.
Yeah, like I said, it starts to get less cost effective at that point in time. Well, there is, a little bit of density in that area that could potentially be added.
Did you look at going up Risser Road to Emerson and going east on that or west on that? Because that way it takes you away from the farmland more.
That's what Doug was talking about.
Yeah, no, I don't recall. Maybe possibly. But like I said, I think that slopes away. That you're going down. You're going downhill, so you might be bucking grade at that point.
Okay.
Okay, well, we get some information together for the March meeting and take it from there. There's really not a whole lot we can do today, but we can have the discussion with the town board and see where it leads. Why don't we move on to the next item, which is probably water project update. There's a lot of news there, I guess.
Yeah, the booster station is running, but it's running in hand. We don't have the SCADA yet. And the new tank one of the new tanks is online. And we should be taking down the old tank over the weekend. And
Over the weekend or?
the water level over the weekend.
Yeah.
And then demo hopefully starting next week on the old tank. So we're moving along.
We'll be back. I got
Yeah.
off. Wow.
He heard water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out there carrying buckets up there filling the tank from the back. Is all of the at our last monthly meeting with contractors last week, there was a little back and forth there between
Yeah,
and Ryan.
we sufficiently kicked the EC in the butt. And they actually moved some stuff up, so
Did they? Okay.
we're closer to where the GC schedule had us.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So the old tank will start coming down next week sometime and,
Yeah, Sessler's already up there. Let's just stop the crane hole to do the demo.
great.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Transfer station planning, we haven't heard anything more from the county regarding this topic. Have you heard anything, Caitlin, that,
Well, I attended that PEQ meeting. I saw you were in there too, Terry. They kind of went over the draft strategic plan, which will go to the Board of Supervisors as well as the transfer station consolidation study this month. I'd have to take a peek at my calendar. I have it on my calendar to attend that meeting just to listen in. So until really that goes through Board of Supervisor approval, then they'll move on to the next step where they bring in the stakeholders to kind of discuss the different elements of the transfer station consolidation study. So basically, until those steps happen, we're in a bit of a holding pattern.
Hey, Caitlin, did you see anything in that strategic plan that would have a major impact on us?
No, there's 4 basic elements to the strategic plan. I was actually in the working group that formed the strategic plan. None of them are major elements. It's mostly that transfer station consolidation study that the full study results, I think, will be of interest to this group. So once those are released, I think we'll have a little bit of a clearer picture. But mostly all the information that is already available, Carla shared with us when she was able to attend the meeting.
Okay.
yeah, originally, I think she had told us that she was hopeful that we'd be able to start doing some of that in January, but as is typical in government, time kind of slips away a bit. So hopefully this month, the Board of Supervisors will be able to review that and make a decision on releasing it to us. So we'll have a little bit more guidance perhaps. So just gotta stay tuned, I guess.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've come to the end of number 4 on our list, so, are there any other comments or concerns or anything that anyone wants to bring up?
No, I think good session.
Yeah, it was interesting. Interesting. Doug's getting masked up, he must be leaving, so. All right, we'll end the meeting for today. We'll see all the smiling faces in another month.
Okay, you all stay safe.
Yeah.
You
Stay
too.
well.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin.